Hello. I want to talk about false, fake heroes. Um, in one respect, society puts these people on a pedestal that they typically don't belong on, aka Trump. You know, he doesn't belong where he is and never did. And it's not just him. It's a if you look at it like a pattern, it's a pattern of leaders that don't belong where they are. Netanyahu, Putin, Macron, Xi, uh, go on and on. They're all losers, and in their own way. Look at Kim Jong Un, biggest loser. But even when you get out of the political arena, you have the sports world. I mean, these people are hailed as like the greatest people on the planet because they put a basketball in a basket. Well, they hit a home run. It's just they're not great people. They might be okay at their sport, whatever sport they're playing, and I wouldn't say they hailed the best, but I wouldn't say they are the best. Uh, it's just uh, you don't. I don't know, but society seems to care about their opinion, uh, who they date, where they live, what they eat, what they wear, Nike shoes, Air Jordans, and it's all commercial crap, and they're not heroes of any kind. I mean, Michael Jordan has a major gambling addiction, and you're propping him up as the man people want to be like. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And Trump, the president, he's a child rapist, and you're propping him up as the president. I mean, he's a lot of things besides a child rapist, but I put child rapist at the top of the list. He's he's pretty much just a rapist. If he sees something he wants, he goes and does it, whether they want it or not. you know, so that's pretty bad. And this is who you elected. But your movie stars, a lot of your movie stars turned out to be rapists and went to Epstein's Island, and you get that money and that power, it corrupts people. But it's not simply they have fame and they have money and they get corrupted. They were corrupted before they had the money and before they got the fame. It's just, it's like what they say when people drink alcohol, and the ones that drink alcohol turn into instant assholes. People say, well, that's their real personality. It's just the alcohol brought it out. They're really an asshole. It's just the alcohol makes them drop the mask, and everybody sees that they're an asshole. When they're not drunk, you don't see it so obviously, but they're assholes. And these people that are child molesters, they were always child molesters. They didn't become child molesters. And these people that are evil and all that, they were born evil. They've been evil all their life. And the money and the fame just puts it on the front page of the newspaper, where a lot of people do the same thing they do and don't end up on the front page of the newspaper and don't have the money and don't have the fame. And it doesn't make it any right. You know, just because you're on the newspaper doesn't make it more wrong. Uh, Raping a child is raping a child. It doesn't matter if you're on the newspaper or not. It's still the wrong thing to do. So I think, and people that are good leaders or good people, they don't get the opportunity to be in the spotlight, and when they do, they get attacked immediately. They get shut down immediately. Uh, one leader I thought was a good leader, and I don't know if it was because of the money he had, uh, or he was just a good person. But Michael Bloomberg was mayor of New York for many, many years, and he was a good mayor in New York. He tried, whether you agreed with his policies or what he tried to do, but he tried to do good for society. He got rid of public smoking, smoking in the parks. He got rid of supersized drinks at restaurants and fast food because it was making people fat, and the cigarettes were killing people. And he tried to get rid of all those uh, little annoyance things. And you know, now he was a little out of touch. He said some things that were out of touch because of his money. He didn't know how poor people lived, uh, or didn't act like he did. But he was a good mayor, and nobody really had a chance when they ran against him. But the minute he ran for president, he ran against Trump for president. He was part of the primary pool, but he never made it anywhere. He dropped out immediately because they brought up the fact that he had an affair with a secretary or something, and all that. But look at Trump. He's raping children. He's killing children, and they elected him. So, you know, Bloomberg was a good guy, but did he have a problem? Sure. Anybody at that level has problems. That's how they get to that level. They use it as blackmail. And they didn't want Bloomberg as president. They really didn't want that because they knew they couldn't buy him. They knew they couldn't own him like they owned Trump. And that made him not qualified as a candidate. Not the relationship, the fact that they couldn't own him. And they found out being mayor of New York for so long, they couldn't own him in New York either. He said what he wanted to say. He didn't care about who he offended. He said the truth, and that's a very dangerous thing in politics, especially. So, I don't think Bloomberg really considered himself Republican or Democrat. I think he considered himself American, and you know, and that's a good thing, but it's a bad thing for politics. So that's just an example of how a good person doesn't uh, fare well in politics. I mean, even if Oprah ran, they would attack her. They would bring up things you never heard of. They probably won't be real, but they would bring up things, make up things, whatever. Her relationship, how she's not married. They would make a big deal out of that. I mean, it would just be endless. Anybody, they'll make things up if they don't find them. Uh, they can easily pay people to say things happen that never happened because they offer a lot of money. You know, and they don't want good people running for office. Now, I think Obama, I don't know. I think Obama was a good person, but I don't think Obama was expected to win. And I think Obama got as far as he got before the November election that he won. And I think the thing that catapulted him to a winning position was the crash of 2008 stock market and the recession that we went into. And I think the fact that the Republicans screwed the pooch on the economy, uh, they weren't going to give it to the Republicans again. Didn't matter who was running. So Obama was like a shoe in. But I don't think Obama was projected to win before the crash. I think McCain was going to win that. And McCain lost as soon as the crash happened. Not the election. He lost when the crash happened. And, you know, so it was a matter of circumstance and lack of control of circumstances. And otherwise, we wouldn't have had Obama. And I don't know. It's just, and I think the backlash of what Obama did for 8 years is how we got Trump. People, the right was very upset with the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. They were upset with a lot of things Obama did, and they just wanted a Republican in the House, which they always want a Republican in the White House. So that's not saying much. But they they manipulate everything. You can't trust anything you see on TV. You can't trust the prices in the store, the price at the gas pump. They control all those prices, and the ones that run those companies, all the companies that you buy from, uh, are Republican. They're run by Republicans. So when there's not a Republican in the White House, they screw things up on purpose. Just look what happened with the egg scandal, raising the price of eggs. They raised the price of eggs on purpose so that Trump would have something to campaign on. And you could say Trump won on the price of eggs. So it was effective. And it was fake because it was a scandal. They were propping up the price artificially. And they do that with the gas. They prop up the price when the Democrats are in the House because the Republicans when they're in the House, the White House, they do favorable things towards these companies that you buy from. They give them favorable tax stats. Look at Trump's tax cut and all those things. And why were all the tech billionaires lined up uh, with their hand out, giving them money for the inauguration? It was all tech billionaires at the inauguration, and there's a reason for that. And you weren't there because you're not a tech billionaire. So all these billionaires, all these people, they play to the Republicans because they are Republicans, and Republicans protect their money and work for them because they're owned by the billionaires, you know, and it's just back to the case of the fake, the fake superstars. They're fake superstars. They're propped up for commercial reasons. Um, Michael Jordan was propped up because he sold sneakers. The Air Jordans were like the most popular sneaker ever made and sold the most. So, I'm not saying he was a bad basketball player, but they didn't get the same out of LeBron. You know, just the word Air Jordan was like crack. People took to it like crack, and I don't think Air LeBron has the same effect. You know, so it's all commercial. It's they just always sell, 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 and that's all they care about. They don't care about anything else. And the sports, just like now they're giving, I have a lottery for Broadway plays. They're going to give teenagers free tickets to Broadway plays. Well, if you want future people to go see Broadway plays, you have to expose Broadway plays to young people. So when they get old, they go to plays. Um, and that's the problem with Broadway. Broadway is losing the people that go to see their plays because the young people don't want any part of it and they can't afford it in the first place. So the same with the sports, though, and that's why I went there because the price of a baseball game is astronomically expensive. And the kids today, they don't care about baseball. I mean, they might play it at Little League. Once Little League's over, they're done with baseball. They're on their phone. They're playing baseball on their EA Sports on their phone. They're not, or their iPad. They're not, they're not playing. Nobody plays baseball in the streets anymore. We used to play stickball and wiffle ball and baseball and football in the streets. Nobody does that anymore. And the kids are not being recruited into the football genre that the older generation has been recruited and keeps they keep the sports alive, but they're dying, and and now they can't afford the sports either. The sports prices are astronomical. I mean, look at the Knicks playoff and people paying $100,000 for a ticket. You know, a 17-year-old kid can't do that. So, it's just they're outpricing themselves. And when they pay a player $100 million to play for them, and it's one player, they can't charge $20 a ticket. It just the math doesn't work. So, and they have to prop up these stars like they're demigods because they want people to pay $1,000 a ticket, and nobody's gonna pay $1,000 a ticket for somebody that's not a demigod. And that's the problem with the WNBA is there are no stars except for Caitlyn. There's no stars in the WNBA, and really nobody cares to go see their games. Um, it's just it doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't have the same following. You know, uh, Magic Johnson, who has HIV, uh, he got HIV because he had sex with like 2,000 women. And he was married. But he had sex with like 2,000 women. You think some woman on the WNBA is gonna have sex with 2,000 men? And I don't think they can if they wanted to, but it wouldn't be a good look if they did. So and most of the women on WNBA are lesbians, so in that way it would never happen anyway. So it's just it doesn't cross over, it doesn't work, and I think they're gonna find WNBA is gonna shut down out of lack of money. And they don't get paid what the men get paid, and they can't get paid what the men get paid. If you look at the WNBA stadium, a lot of the seats are empty. So, you know, you can't pay the high salaries with empty seats. Um, the same goes to soccer. There is no female baseball, which uh, financially probably wouldn't work, but there should be. There was female softball, but it didn't work. You know, I don't know. It's just it doesn't cross over to all the male sports just being played by females. They just don't get the following. They don't get the crowd. They don't get the endorsements. They don't get all the things that come with it. And I don't know that it's primarily because it's a male-dominant society. It's just that most men don't want to go see a WNBA game. They want to go see a Knick game. They'll pay thousands of dollars to go see a Knick game, but they're not going to pay thousands of dollars to go see a WNBA game. Sorry, not going to happen. You know, if their girlfriend wants to go and see the game, maybe you'll get them there that way. But that's no way to run a business. And I think you can see it when you watch it. And that's what I see when I watch it. I see a failure. I see a doomed league. And sooner or later, whoever's investing in them will divest, and whoever propping them up will stop propping them up because they're not making the return they want to. And and you can't do it just because it might be the right thing to do, So it has to make money, and if it doesn't make money, it'll die. But you know, it's just every way you look, any superstar, they're fake. They're fake. They're not real. They're and they usually have major problems, and it might take a little while, but those problems come out into the air, like an R. Kelly or P. Diddy, and you know, even Prince Andrew, he was propped up, and look what happened to him. And I think Charles has the same thing, but because he's king, they're hiding it. But I think he has the same problem as his brother. The apple didn't fall far from the tree on that one. And it's just a matter of time. Maybe they'll wait till he dies to say all the things he did. But I think he killed Diana, so that's a big negative right there. But it's just uh, please stop it. Stop propping up these people. Stop buying their products. Stop buying their shirts. You know, you just make things worse when you do that.